Welcome back, everybody. Episode 35 for a new week of content in War of the Visions. JB and I back again. Good to see you, man, as always. How's things going? How's the week starting off for you?
Good to see you too. Glad to be back here. I was actually took kind of a mini vacation last week, so I've been kind of disconnected from the game, disconnected from Discord and the community for it was a good 4 or 5 days. I took kind of a long weekend, had a golf trip with some friends down to Florida, and had a good time. It was good to kind of get away from things for a few days. I did kind of miss out on an exciting week for the game, though, at least for the first few days there. Vivi coming in and the kind of the crowning piece of the collaboration here. So yeah, that's exciting that he's finally in game. We talked a little bit about him last week. I know you pulled him. What have you thought so far with him?
Kind of what I figured when I did my review, that he is an excellent unit. He fits in like perfect timing. He's a great complement to not only Helena but that class in general. He's not wowing me though. He's not like undefeatable. He's a super solid unit. But man, he gets blitzed by a lot of things pretty hard. The survivability is kind of there, but at the same time, it's not like soul levels of bulk, and even Helena levels of bulk where I feel like he goes down a little easier. But still, like, really interesting wrinkle in the game. No mirror matchup is exactly the same. It's still a ton of RNG with the limit breaks and turn order and cast times, and some might like that, some might not like that. It's actually kind of frustrating sometimes when you leave it up to chance. But yeah, so far, Vivi, pretty good. We'll see about Arena this week.
Yeah, so I mean, I got back into town yesterday, and then like I couldn't wait to get home and do my polls. Thankfully, it went gangbusters for me. I had one of my best polling sessions in months.
Ugh,
I got Vivi for on the second poll, and then I got the his vision card also on the second poll. So totally slayed that banner. So it was definitely exciting. So I built him up relatively quickly. I
good.
started playing with him a little bit today, and I noticed he was getting wrecked and by the light teams especially. So I really needed to. I was already starting to try to like tinker with him. How can I keep him back out of AOE's? Because he doesn't have a ton of AOE res. He doesn't have like the new barriers or survival mechanics. It's really all about that re-raise and then his ability to protect his re-raise. That's kind of what he has. So you really need to play around that and think about how you're gonna best utilize that.
Absolutely. Even the heal back, if you get caught in the wrong turn order with the chaining potential of an enemy team, he'll still get one shot by a lot of stuff, even if he gets that heal back off. And I actually literally just released a video last week about the calcs because one of my fights I was caught off guard that he got insta killed by Helena's limit break. And it was one of those moments that I'm like, I really need to like deep dive and see what's going on here between like the light res and what you have for magic res if she gets that imperil off on you, and a whole bunch of things. So it's definitely not a slam dunk, but it's a little bit higher, more thought than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be an easy slot in just to use and get good results, and it's not the case. There's some real thought that has to go on in that matchup.
I mean, it's not to say that he's not like a good character. He's still a very good character. He's still very, very strong. He does a ton of damage.
Yep,
He doesn't have the imperils or anything like that to like transcend be like transcendent level damage, but it's very, very good just based on like his high modifiers and high magic values that he has. So if you do pair him with somebody like a Helena who does have the imperils, it really can take his damage to like the next level. Of course,
absolutely.
Raph 2 has breaks and things that can help him out. So
Good point.
yeah.
Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, she's got both the spirit and peril and dark res down technically, so that synergizes really well.
One thing I did notice, I was just doing some mocking against, my guild today, trying to see, how these defenses are looking. And I was trying to take evasion into like, and taking evasion into Raph has always been rough, because she's so tanky, because a lot of those, evasion units are slash based, and that's really her wheelhouse. But, with the, getting her in peril out, she goes to her 100% hit. Then you got Vivi with the AoE 100% hit.
Yep.
It's really doing a number, especially on the Earth evasion, which doesn't have the sure hit, nullification. So I think, like I kind of was thinking that this would happen, and it seems confirmed for me, at least in the early goings. I think Evasion is going to take a little bit of a step back here as people start turning to Raf Vivi as like a duo.
Yeah, absolutely could see that. And plus, we're at the point too, like everything's always just a pendulum. That for so long, evade seemed to have died down. Now it's coming back, and it's gonna be the same thing where people just start gearing for it again to the point that you're not going to surprise people. That's really one of the best things about his evasion is just catching people off guard, and all of a sudden everyone's wearing marshmallow rings +6, so everyone's got above average accuracy at the moment. There's just a lot of things going on that make that tougher. It's not perfect, but I think it's no longer the hidden secret that it might have been, 3-4 weeks ago when we first came out with that Helena showcase. Even last week, where we were talking about evade as this sneaky thing to bring against it, and I think the cat's out of the bag. Even now, this is a good segue. We saw this in the tournament that just concluded, the auto grand finals. There was a huge amount of Halloween Lucio being played there, and because of the matchups of what you were seeing with people bringing Helena, and there were some VVs that were brought out. There was a cost limit though of 240, so there were some limitations to what people were building. But Evasion was still doing relatively well with them. It was a fun thing to watch too. A lot of surprises seeing VVs so quickly built from some people, but Black pulled it out. I was genuinely entertained in that last fight with him and Odaiba. I know you and I were cheering for Ram 9 as well. He was trying to bring that water team in, which actually works really well against a handful of those teams. The debuff weakening of what water can achieve with the Sword Red Mage actually does really well against Helena and some of those
Yeah.
imperils that I was hoping for a little more, because I know I've seen the results. I just didn't come to fruition though for him.
Yeah, that's or went out for Ram 9, but he was amazing. He had a great tournament. He gave everyone a run for their money. But certainly congrats to Black. I think he was a little bit of an underdog. I don't
Huge
know if
underdog.
anyone was really saying that he was going to win it all, but I think the Brazil fans down there were definitely ecstatic to see that. XBR, shout out to those guys. They have been around in the Guild War scene for a very long time. I have a number of guilds. I know that I know a number of players over there, so I'm sure they're very happy to see all that.
Yeah, I was reminiscent. I was getting PTSD. I'll always bring this up to laugh at myself. He was running the Balo team with Melnia and Bradley, but his positioning was such that he was putting Balo out on an island on one side with the bow tie, and then the other two units just kind of diametrically opposite. And that's exactly the positioning, I'll never forget this, that you used against me in that initial tournament with the Fryevi and the Ice Girls, where you had your Fryevi on one side of the map and you had your two DPS on the other. The general concept was like, if I'm gonna have to focus all my attention on one side, it keeps your other units completely safe from any of that chip damage. And it was a formula that didn't have a lot of counterplay. No one really ever took a chance on bringing any wind at all in that tournament. There were no wind units other than some maybe early Glaciellas on, but no one ever gave it a second attempt. It was actually a little surprising. And considering Vivi was built so fast, I thought maybe we'd see a Zidane just because of the amount of magic. But we didn't. It was yeah. Yeah.
I'm really surprised that we didn't see any wins, to be honest, because you know a lot of people reincarnated Glaciella with the recent reincarnation festival. She's been a long time, top tier unit, and Wind has continued to see like a steady play rate. The Wind team has been very strong against a lot of the top meta units for a while now. Very good against the light team, very good against dark. So yeah, I was surprised not to see her. That's kind of my one of the first takeaway I had when I was sort of watching the final between or at least the semifinal between Ram and Black. But it was really cool to see Melnia out there. That's a unit that I think some people had some hopes for that we really haven't seen come to fruition. Just because I think the state of missile in general, and maybe even some of the maps that we've been on, haven't really been conducive to it.
Yep.
But certainly when she's built out, and I'm sure probably some scrolls pumped into her, she was doing quite a bit of damage. And Ferris does have a missile weakness, so that is one way you can get to her for sure.
Definitely. Well, and that's some of the benefit of the initial placement too, is that those missile units, you really are confined typically when it comes to Guild War and Arena to what they can do from movement, from range. Do they move 3, move 2? What do they do for buffs? That a lot of times it's tricky to get them down right, but with the initial placement, you can really tune those missile units to hit their optimization a lot more easily than they might be in the regular Guild War arrangement. But yeah, agreed. She was an interesting piece. Honestly, a relatively minor piece of it. There were fights where she wouldn't be attacking or doing anything till 3/4 of the way through the fight, and it was already done basically. But yeah, it was good.
I think Bradley kind of exerted his dominance, once again showing that, out of the year 3 units, he's definitely up there and has been for a while now one of if not the best ones of the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, tournament's concluded at this point. A lot of hard work went into it. Would love to see it come back around next year. My only constructive criticism, I think, would just be to shorten it just a little bit. I know me myself, there was a little bit of fatigue as time went on. That they spaced it out in such a way that after months and months and months, they call them the Leonis Cup and the Wozette Cup, and it just kind of becomes like noise after a while. And I'm even sure for people that qualified initially, by the time, like, let's say Odaiba won the first one, by the time things came back around for the rest of the tournament, unless you're like keeping up with the game still and like really like building your units at that point, I think it's still tough to, like, I don't know, for the average player to sustain their engagement for as long as the tournament went on. That if you won an early tournament, you have to wait like 4 to 6 months for a grand final. Like, it seems like a long time to me.
I can see that. At the same time, I did kind of like having a monthly cadence. I mean, personally, I mean, I like the tournament scenes. I like maybe it's more of like a niche thing, maybe to kind of want to watch those all the time. But I enjoyed watching the matches, and I thought that the videos that they were putting out on the YouTube channel were well put together and well edited, and I think the overall like production quality was pretty well done. I think of other points of feedback, and I know others have suggested it too. Like maybe I really love Oron J. I think he's a great like color commentator, but I think having like having a second person who's just as knowledgeable there to kind of bounce things off of and kind of add another dimension to it, I think would have definitely added to the experience as well.
Yeah, I'll completely agree with that. And that's not a knock on Justin at all. It's, that if you think of a sports format when it comes to commentators, you either have two commentators on equal footing in terms of their mastery and grasp of what's occurring, or you have someone who's technically like a host and they kind of like lead the discussion for the other two. And I think that's pretty common when I think of like ESPN and like Overwatch League and esports. You have someone who's kind of like that moderator that and to lead the discussion, to keep things on track, but you essentially let the heavy lifting go to the desk, if that makes sense. And yeah, I think it'd be fun just to see different opinions, different strategies, and an analysis of what goes on. But yeah, I think that would be a good one too. I know you and I are both available for stuff like that.
Definitely. And I mean, I think overall, I really, really hope that they continue it. I hope that they saw enough engagement and enough interest from the community that they will do it, carry it over into 2024, because it's something that, we wanted official tournaments for a while. They finally gave it to us. So I hope that it continues on.
Yeah, no, me too. Absolutely, absolutely. And so yeah, we'll keep going through some of the topics here. It's a relatively light week. Again, we kind of know what's upcoming, but we don't. We know we have a winter unit coming, but we have no details as to what. In terms of the JP timeline, we know we're a couple units behind. I know we haven't talked about the new Wind Pierce unit, the Veritas unit, but we've kind of held off on that just because there's still some stuff coming out for him, and there's still some time till we see him. But for now, just kind of looking ahead, we'll talk about the new vision card that just dropped in JP, because we're going to be doing tonight a tier list of all the job based vision cards, and figure it's about time to bring some extra visibility, and there's enough of them now that we can kind of get a good handle on what's valuable and what's not. But before we get into that, let's look at the brand new job vision card released in JP. So very cute artwork. It's the Leonis boys vision card. It's Mont and Stern as kids. You just put together this slide today. Did you have any observations as you're putting together, or just initial quick hit thoughts?
Yeah, so first thing is this card is a duplicate in terms of job layout as the Ultros card. So spear, sword, red mage, and devout. So exact same units on this card, exact same ones on the Ultros card. So it's not often that we see the exact same job classes, coming on these vision cards, especially kind of in quick succession like that. So I thought that was interesting. So maybe they're trying to really build up that connection there between that small handful of classes. And it makes sense, because you have some very strong bruisers and tanks within the spear group. Devout, of course, doesn't have any tanks or bruisers. They're all about support. They're about magic damage. So yeah, I think there's some interesting combos here, and then also the same. You can say some of the same things for red mage as well. You have some bruisers in there. You have some tanks. So the card itself, this is going to be a top tier card. You have two excellent party effects with 24 area resist and 25% HP. It's not often that we get to have that 25% HP in the primary slot,
Yep.
so that is very significant. Yeah, and pretty decent, base stats and kind of whatever. The bestowed, I think, is what really kind of falls off a little bit for me on this one. 15% magic res, I think, is kind of whatever when you think about the penetration levels like a Vivi has or some of these other mages. But
Yep.
I don't know, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, early spoiler. This is an S tier card for me. I know we'll go into that, but we'll talk a little bit about why in particular. But to me, this is a really noteworthy one. A for the Spear group. That this is Eld's card, really and truly. But Spear, by and large, is missing an AOE res card at this moment. So this is a perfect fill in for that. Not only that, but it's 24%, so above average of what they would normally get. The HP in the past 6 months or so, I've come to appreciate more and more than ever. You'll see a lot of my builds, and even the one last week, the Helena Showcase, I'll be putting Golem in the sub slot for that 20 to 25% HP because there's so many impenetrable resistances right now and people building up their unit and AoE res that the HP levels that you can get characters to mean way more than they ever have. So to have this 25% just kind of like for free, I'll call it, like these characters just get an extra amount of bulk, is immense, number one. And then number two, the 15% magic res, I agree with you in the penetration perspective, but this was something I really did kind of like need a knowledge check on when I did that Vivi review, was that there is a certain like minimum, and we've talked about this, to prevent yourself from going negative. And so to me, this 15% magic res is a really big buffer to make sure that when you are going against Helena with that magic res down limit break, that you're already 15% positive no matter what, regardless of your trust no passives, your Esper, your innate resistances, your whatever, passives, etc., buffs, you know it. So I like that a lot, particularly for someone like Eld, where he is kind of this big bruiser. To me, one of the big things that you need to do to be a bruiser is not get harshly imperiled. Getting that damage amplification is a real quick way for things to go south. And so, yeah, Sword Red Mage is enormous on this. Staff Devout is enormous on this, and Pierce is enormous. This is going to be a big driver for many units.
Also interesting for, I mean, if you're a big like Sword A red mage player, this is now two cards that they have with the 24% area resist. So there could really be some good stacking there that they can get for AoE res. Uh, Huge amount of decks there in the base stats too. 53 decks. That's
Good call. Yep.
pretty material, like in terms of crit rate. Where you think of the Spear group in general, that's one of their hallmarks. A lot of nice crit units, and Eld is right up there too. He's got a pretty decent crit rate. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, and we know from the what's the word? Uh, yes, and we know from the schedule that they gave us that this card's going to be coming for us right towards the end of the month. So just a couple more weeks to wait on this one.
Yep. Definitely. That's why I'm going to have to really temper my hopes for the winter unit. But this is a permanent pool card. So if you don't get it, worth waiting for. But yeah, it's hard to resist when you have a card this good come out and you want to be able to put it to use.
This is going to continue the hollow vision card, so it seems like that's just what it is now. All the vision cards are hollow. So in
But
case there was any doubts out there.
we did get some good news recently, though. PST, who's one of the JP streamers, did confirm now that Vision cards have been out long enough, they had their monthly reset. The Hollow Vision card shards are purchasable in the MOG, what do you call it, MOG Shop Exchange. When you go into the MOG Shop and go to your Vision card medals, you can exchange them. So should you pull this later off banner, and the month has gone by since its release, you can buy it in the shop for those medals that you might have left over. So that's a huge plus in my opinion that they added that there.
That's definitely good. Hopefully at some point they will re-implement the vision stars. I think that's really the missing piece for everyone to really kind of get behind these. One other thing I will say, just as kind of a maybe a feather in Gumi's hat this week, I have really appreciated the 4 times hard quests for vision cards.
Yes.
So hopefully folks out there have been doing their hard quests on those vision cards. and I hope that these continue. It seems like they will be. You know, they've been putting out a lot of these kind of double time barracks, double time hard quests, and up. So I think that's been kind of something that I haven't seen a ton of people talking about, but something that I think is appreciated.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah, then we'll start off our vision card tier list, if you will. And so let's quickly we'll define how we ended up putting these into tiers. We had some good quality debate back and forth on what kind of tiers we do, and we decided on an S, A, B, C, D. Right, 5 total tiers, and we did want to try to get some kind of framework of consistency, and we tried to come up with some kind of idea of like we have, and it actually comes down exactly to this. We both have opinions on what we consider priorities for what we want to see for attributes. So we always know that AoE res, unit res, and agility percent are like top priority number one on all main slot vision cards. We also have a strong affinity toward reaction block rate percent and debuff weakening at this time. It's just a slight step down, but it's right there. And then even things like magic percent, attack percent are very competitive, and then some human killers on Fizz and Matt. So like the essentially way we try to set this up was that cards that have, let's say, 2 or more of those attributes are S tier. If they have 1 or more, it's an A tier. It's not an exact science, but I think you'll start, the viewers, I think you'll start to notice the consistency when we start going through them. So I think I generally captured that. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, and how we were thinking about this?
I will say that there was some sort of reference for the, or at least some bonus points being gained for bestowed abilities and like base stats, where it's a big bonus, like if cards have luck or agility base stats, or if they have agility or area unit resist bestowed, things like that. And then like in terms of like the units that can actually utilize the card, we didn't want to go too far down that rabbit hole of saying, okay, this card is S tier because these top meta units of this moment can use them, because those things are very ebb and flow.
Right.
Units come in and out of being in the limelight, and of course new units are shuffling in all the time that really can change our perspective. So we really try to focus mostly on the effects themselves and what they give you, and less about the units behind them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it is part of it. It influenced the decision ever so slightly, but right, the goal of this tier list is that 3 months from now we look back at it and nothing changes. You know what I mean? Like these should be objectively pretty solid, regardless of what game balances occur. On that note, let's kick things off. We're going to start here with our D tier of cards, and again, these are cards that either just missed the mark, very niche, subslot, stats that necessarily don't drive team compositions. And so I don't know where we want to start with these. I know a couple of these, I'm sure many of you that are watching have probably very rarely used these. I know there's a lot of cards here that have some strike res on them, or dexterity, elemental chain res, a couple of man killer, pierce attack. There's not a lot to say though, other than they're just niche. That's all it is. They're not bad, they're just very niche.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be kind of one of the first things I want to say too, is that you can really make a case for any vision card to be part of a build. It really all depends on what the build goals are, what team you're going up against, what your priorities are for that moment, what you want to enhance in terms of like strengths and weaknesses of the units that you're taking into battle. On the other hand, though, I really can't see a huge case being made for any of these cards to be put in your primary slot, because none of them have any of like what is the common knowledge of like best effects for PvP in general. Maybe you could make like a slight case for that accuracy card, which is that Miranda card, where if you're really trying to focus and hammer in on that accuracy, maybe you might slide that into your primary. Outside of that, I really can't see it for any of these cards. And personally, I haven't used them in that manner. One other thing I do want to point out, I have marked the cards that are limited time, and look, we have a ton of them, to be honest. You're gonna kind of see as we go through the tiers, but I just wanted to point that out also.
No, totally. And I'm just off the top of my head, I don't think I've used any of these cards in quite some time. I think the Dragon Quest one I did for a little while, just because I think this is the Pearson Strike Res, or one of those that I remember that was helpful for that niche time, but the rest of these, man, never. So then this gets us to our C tier, and a lot of these cards, again, they're all quality in their own right, but most of these tend to not be priorities for main slot vision cards. If they are, it's rare circumstances. And even in the sub slot, a lot of the things we ding some of these cards for are things that are specifically like slash attack up or pierce attack up. It's very specific to the team and not as universal as some of the other attributes. And some of them are just we try to keep classes out of the conversation of characters, but some of them you have to talk about it. I know, for instance, we were thinking about the Lunar New Year Resnick card where there's some slash res pen on it. That's really valuable. We actually value that a lot. The problem is Dagger's the only slash category on that card. And so it's one of those things that maybe a little bit confused in how they ascribe to some of these, but overall, yeah, that's kind of my general thoughts. I don't know if you want to expand on that quickly.
Yeah, I think there's some solid cards in here. I do like that Pursuer card, the Luartha card, simply because Missile, like for example, they have some card compression like in the main slots, so they can afford to actually bring that card into their primary. So I like it for that. But that's very niche. I mean, I think anytime you're looking at like a specific damage modifier, like a missile attack, like a slash attack, like a strike attack, when you're looking at like putting rainbow teams together, it really kind of puts you in a corner in terms of what units you want to try to bring into the team to take advantage of that modifier. I automatically kind of value that less than like an attack or a magic, which is more general and can hit more units that might be usable on the cards. Aside from that, I think another interesting card here is that Varouche card there with Lamiga and what's her name,
Uh,
Lamida or
yeah, I don't remember. I really don't.
something like that.
Yeah,
But that card is very interesting in that it's like hyper focuses on that dark resistance, which maybe right now that card could be a little bit more interesting, but still again very niche. And then yeah, like you said, a lot of secondary cards here that maybe for some teams they're very usable.
yeah. That Lamega card, this Rouge card, this card's so niche. It's the only one in the game I don't own. I'll get it.
I have it, and I mean I've tried using it a couple times. Um, it's okay. I mean, for certain builds it can be fine.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure a lot of people are probably a little surprised to see the Sephiroth card here, but we've talked about this. This one, the reaction block is nice, but the slash attack is again kind of party dependent, and as far as priorities go, damage modifiers tend to be valued, but just lower priority when it comes to team building. If they're there, that's great, but you typically don't like hunt for them. And in terms of a main slot vision card, I don't see much use for it. But I know a lot of people probably think about it as a really highly valued card. We've kind of dispelled that a couple times previously, but yeah, it's here in our C tier.
I think for certain teams, it's can be a decent secondary card when you like a Katana team or like a Red Mage team. Again, we're not considering any specific units with these cards too, so like the limited bestows are straight out the window, not really considered. Even though this one does have a very nice one for Sephiroth, it's not really part of our grading process here.
No, absolutely no. I agree. All right, so then that brings us to our B tier of vision cards, and we could probably talk a little more specifically about some of them at this point, but you'll probably start to notice some trends here that we do still have a couple of the highly preferable stats. I know the Sylvie vision card here and the Bridal Alaya vision card both have area res on them, but they come in lower at 16 area res, not the bare, typical base of 20 or 24. I know the Hyo vision card is an agility card, but the other attributes are kind of so-so. We have a lot of other percent-based ones, though. The Irvine card and the Minotaur one, for instance, are attack percent, and you're seeing some penetration ones here with the Sildra and the Roy Mustang vision card, that those offer penetrations respectively. Any cards here in particular that jump out at you or that you wanted to expand upon?
Yeah, so like you were saying with those first two cards, with the area resistance, they are very good cards overall. Of course, area resistance much sought after, one of the top effects. It's at this point when you're really trying to like grade and look at how good the various cards are. That's the kind of the fine separation that you have to go to. Whereas one has 24, one has 20, one has 16. Obviously, the 16 is going to be the odd man out unless the other effects are so good that it can really bump it up over those other ones. In this case, slash resistance and crit rate and things like this aren't really gonna do that. So that Hyo card, I think it is an 18% agility card if I remember correctly,
It is.
which is very strong. I'm not a huge fan of the secondary effects like you said. I do think that this card is also a victim a little bit of the state of like the jobs that can really take advantage of it too. where like Greatsword really hasn't come into its own as like a rainbow team just yet. And I think that it could maybe be a better card in the future, once that does come to pass.
I'll agree with you
And
there. Yeah. It's fun. I actually just used this card for the first time this week, believe it or not, because it has Staff Black Mage on it. That when I was looking at my Vivi and Helena build, again, that same convo building up some of that magic res, kind of dawned on me for the first time this is a card I can use it on. And it is a sub slot vision card. Unfortunately, Raph is not on here, so she does not benefit. She's kind of the odd man out on that. But I agree with you. In terms of class overlap, Great Sword has tended to underwhelm, but there could be an amazing Great Sword user coming out tomorrow. That's the thing that you want to, keep in the back of your mind. The crit rate, again, is one of those things that it's valued, but not a game changer. I think the 18% agility versus 15% is really the strongest thing here. It's got 3 agility points of it on its own, too, so whoever's getting this is going to be, much faster than average. So I think this card may be slightly undervalued at this current moment. I could see it bumping to an A, but I think it's pretty safe here with the others in B.
I do like the bestowed defense pen on that as well. Certain units, especially on this one, like tanks, for example, like a King Mont or a Joom, or they can really benefit from that too. So
Absolutely. We'll talk real quick about Fundamental Forces, the Elena Vision card. I'll steal your thunder on this because you had convinced me to bring this up. We initially had this in C, and this is one of those times where I was a little pigeonholed in the moment that I've never really seen this card used outside of an Elena team. So to me, I kind of considered it a niche card, but if you really look at what this card offers from an evasion perspective and from equipping it on an evade unit, when you talk about in the future, this is that 24% evade, so it's higher than average. The 16 crit evade I actually like for some of these evade units too, that, they're naturally not as bulky as other units, and so being able to mitigate some of that crit damage is nice. The slash attack is really where I dinged it, but the 18 luck and the 8% agility more than anything is what you convinced me on that. Should this come to a future evade unit, getting that 24 evade and the 8% agility is a top tier evade card. And there are a couple units on here. It's just probably not enough to leverage the full benefits of this. But again, looking at it from a objective perspective, there's a lot of upside here for the future.
I mean, when you look at the luck and agility there for the bestowed effect, when you actually calc that out, it's around 8 to 10% of raw evasion just from that, on top of the 24 evasion. So I know that everybody loves those 42%, luck cards. This one is just as good if you're building an evade team, in terms of, if you're actually trying to make people miss. The problem with it thus far has been the unit selection. The dagger group has some units that could really take advantage and harness this. They're just missing that luck card to go with it. So once that does come along, I think, maybe dagger evasion could be a viable play.
Yeah, I mean, just topically speaking, I know Zidane kind of comes to mind there, where we were running him as an evade unit against that Magic matchup most recently. And it's one of those times that, like, this card's a real good card for him if you are running that strategy and that style. And, although it's, again, you got to consider other vision cards, you could have another dagger unit drop tomorrow. That changes things. So it's overall in a good spot. Any other cards here in our B tier you want to highlight? I know I thought I was going to briefly talk about Shinryu, but I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to hyper focus on.
I'll put a shout out for the Kefka card just because that's, Kefka is one of my favorite units in the game. That card, I really like the combination of effects. It has the 25% HP. We were just talking about that. I think that if you look at actually the stats in the game, HP is one of the stats that has actually been slowly crept over as the units continue to come out. That HP, the average HP continues to get higher and higher, essentially, month after month. So, I think that is one that scales pretty well in terms of, as its base HP gets higher, that effect gets increases in value. But it does have that the 42 magic attack as well, which it's a considerable modifier, and it can touch a lot of units on this card. Got of course the glove group. You've got devout group, so some pretty solid magic users in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with that. I've definitely used this card in almost all my glove teams. It's a must, to be honest, for various reasons. But I know the Shinryu card, which just came out, a lot of us were excited and kind of hyped for it. There's still good reason to be. The debuff weakening is nice. One of my current problems with this vision card though is that it's tough to get into a main slot reliably. When you put this in the sub slot, it drops to 20%, which is still fine, still better than nothing. But when you consider the slash res, we kind of wave that off as not an enormously beneficial one. And the human killer only on magic attack is not bad. But again, I'm not building a team around that modifier. The other bestowed effects, they're okay. Magic and the accuracy certainly nice enough. The 3 agility, but overall, I think this card is still really good, and it's still got a time and place. But that debuff weakening is the kind of thing that only a couple characters I think really take its full upside from. I still think it's better than almost all of the things you can probably put on at this time, but the rest of the things on this vision card are kind of holding it back a little for me.
The other kind of like bonus for this card is that it does have the hollow effect for Guild War, which for a lot of us is a pretty important category, in terms of day-to-day PvP. So it does have that 15 accuracy. So combined with the bestowed, you could make a case for, if you're really trying to bump accuracy on one unit, maybe it makes a case to get thrown in the primary. I know that a lot of these kind of B and C tier cards for me, there's a lot that I would like to put in the primary if I had the room for it. So it's where you're looking for those cards that really are probably going to be primarily in our S tier, as we come to see, that have that slot compression in terms of the effects that allow you to do that. So
yep, yeah, totally. That accuracy, I agreed. That can't be understated. Ironically, that's Helena's weakness, and apparently this vision card hasn't done a lot to help her with that. So it's still really valuable, but overall, a super solid card that I think nothing wrong with a B here. B is still a very, very important aspect of what you're building cards for.
Yeah, I think this B tier is where you're starting to see cards that are in pretty regular rotation, but probably more so in the secondary slot.
Yep. All right, that brings us to our A tier of vision cards. And so these are ones that have those, we'll call them like those meta, strong, definitive effects of the AoE unit and agility. They typically have other very strong unit bestowed effects on them as well. They typically have really amazing other secondary stats on the party effects as well. I don't know where you want to start here. Is there a certain vision card you want to shout out in particular for yourself?
I feel like this A and S tier, we should just go down the list here. I think these are
sure.
Yeah. So we can start off with that Zoma card, the Dragon Quest.
Yes, this is a great one. So for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, you're getting that 15% agility. You get 10% area res on whoever equips it. That's one of my favorite things about it. You get a free 32 luck as well, which for these magic users is a great piece of accuracy and crit evasion you can potentially get in there. The 28 magic attack is kind of okay. It's whatever. The slasher is kind of the same concept, but overall, I think the card for whoever is wearing it is a nice upgrade for them.
Yeah, it's a card that I know that a lot of people had to skip because it was one of those first job cards that seemed questionable because it was kind of tailored towards Zoma, and we really at that point knew zero of what was coming for Fist or for Glove in the future. So it is one of those things where the hindsight kind of bites you a little bit, that maybe you happen to miss it, and this is one that who knows if they'll ever rerun it at this point.
That's a good point. Yeah, for Dragon Quest, it's true. Yeah,
that is kind of one of the challenges with a lot of these limited cards for sure. Hopefully we'll get it again someday. But I totally agree that the bestowed effects here, I think, really do give it that extra oomph that it needed to get into this tier.
Definitely. The next one up here is the Soul Vision card, which came out kind of recently, and this one is very similar, and that is an agility based card on its primary attribute, but it also has a very strong bestowed effect that it has the 10% unit res instead of the AoE res, and some great defensive stats here for the chain res. This is an underratedly sneaky mechanic for damage mitigation, and free extra human kill here too. Definitely all strong points.
Yeah, I mean, this is a card that I was using a lot in that kind of devout meta that was happening. Still ongoing a bit. But yeah, good for great swords. Another agility card for that class as well. Definitely a solid all around one.
Yeah, great swords in a half decent spot. A couple more and it'll be right there. Next one here is the Inherited Wills Vision card, and this is an interesting one. I love this card, but to me, this is notoriously a vision card that you'll typically see in the sub slot, not because it's not a good card, but because it really is, it just kind of falls out of favor with the main attributes. But all three of these things, the reaction block and HP in particular, are still pretty valuable in the sub slots. But even if this does have the opportunity to be a main slot vision card in your strike teams, which I know they can be with the full metal, if this was your third main slot vision card, another 10 area rest here on that unit bestowed. Super impactful, and obviously you're getting the full effects of the reaction block and the HP. But even in the sub slot, it still offers a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I think that this is such a good secondary card because HP and reaction block are both so good in the secondary slot. Like they retain a lot of their value. I think HP is 80% and reaction block is 70%. So very, very strong. Then of course, very nice base stats on there as well in terms of the agility and resist. So
Right.
this has been one of my most used cards for those classes that can take advantage of it.
Same, absolutely, me too. And the next one here is from the East to Horn. Do you want to talk about this one for a minute?
I like this card too. I think that for a lot of us, this was kind of one of our first forays into the job cards with that fist group because this was the ideal area resist card for that class originally. Of course, it didn't quite fit exactly as you wanted it because this is kind of sort of a more magic focused card with the base stats, but it does have that really nice bestowed ability with the 8% agility. And I think this has more morphed into one of the better secondary area resist cards for some of those groups that have multiple, because it does have dexterity on there, which you like to pick that up in the sub slot too. So I think this one is very good. Of course, anytime you have area resist, I think it is kind of jumping up in the tier list.
Yep, I would agree. And the bestowed really carries this too. And the dexterity I like too. I'm still coming around to that stat more and more. It doesn't do as much for accuracy nowadays, but for what it does for crit rate reliability is a really impactful thing, particularly for a lot of the units that have that higher base dexterity. So that's a lot of, again, check the boxes for this card. The next one here is our Yuffie Vision card that came out with her. And this one, maybe a step above the fundamental forces, despite doing somewhat similar things. It's a 20% evasion, but again, the bestowed effect here is 10% unit res. The 20 crit damage is nice for a lot of these units that do skew higher on their crit rates, and the 60% acquired AP, where, again, you kind of figure this is typically trying to be a main slot vision card. That 60% acquired AP is relatively impactful when you add up all the other sources of it, that it's just slightly a step above what the Elena one offers. Because again, crit damage is kind of like that universal modifier as well, whereas fundamental forces is just that slash attack. So a little bit different upside here.
A great bestowed luck on there as well, that the 20 luck. The unit resist, I love having that on the evasion units because the majority of guaranteed hits in the game are unit based. So, if they do catch, one of those guaranteed hits onto them, maybe this saves them from going down in a single strike. So, also, I do want to say that this card is a 100% free card. You can get it right now because Pixel Remaster is running. So if you haven't got this before, get this card. It's if you're running an evasion team, I would say it's, specifically for that purpose, it is S tier.
Yep, completely agree. Definitely. For any evasion team, this is one of the best. The next one here is one of the other Full Metal Alchemist cards, and this is one of those cards that really great just from a lot of physical damage dealers, so it fits up perfectly with the attack stat, but 50% attack, 30 crit rate and 20 crit damage. Again, those in conjunction with each other make that extra damage upside a lot more reliable. You also have the 5% agility on the bestowed and 2 extra agility on the stat itself. This is a card that, sub slot still gets a lot of value, but even with the compression of where you can put it on a lot of the main slots, this is a lot of main slot value as well. And I think you see this card a lot of times in those Bradley teams or in those strike teams being in the main slot.
I know that when a few months ago when people were really experimenting with like Fist plus Bradley and various kind of hybrid comps, this was like an all-in-one card for Bradley because it gets him a bunch of agility, it gets him a bunch of attack stats and let him do his thing, and it really didn't matter really too much about what the other cards in the party were at that point. So it's really just stacked in terms of the total package that it offers from an offense and speed perspective. So yeah, another very, very solid card. This was another free one. Unfortunately, FMA is not running, but I do know a lot of us picked this one up for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just hype on that for us, or harp on that for a second. You brought up an excellent point of when you bring in Bradley into that mixed team of the fist units, where again, when you consider the main slot vision cards, let's say that full metal one that we haven't seen yet, that's the unit res and the agility. Bradley's not on there, so he'll miss out on that agility upside. But when you consider he's still getting the 5% here and the extra 2 points here, that's where it ends up not hurting you as badly. So you kind of skin the cat a different way to still keep him there, and that's one of those things that makes these cards a little bit tougher for your casual player to kind of really analyze. But that's where it's not impossible to use these in teams that may not make immediate sense.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why a lot of these bestowed effects really do give bonus points because of that team building angle that you just mentioned. That maybe the primary cards aren't touching every single unit, but you can sort of make that trade off because you have some great bestowed effects on them.
Yep, absolutely. The next one here is the Master Coral Vision card. This came out a little while ago when Vigo was first introduced. This is still a super strong Vision card in my opinion because it's got not only the 20 unit res, but 48% reaction block. It's got that 5% agility on the bestowed, which we really like. For lightning units, 10 area res is certainly very, very nice to see. And the 16 magic res is just kind of nice to throw in there in the main slot. Again, just one of those random extra durability stats. But I haven't used this one a ton, but on paper, it's still a really good Vision card.
I like this quite a bit, specifically for that the 48% reaction block is the most you can get, on any card. Uh, so at that point, if you combo with the Trust Stone, 68%, you're pretty healthy there, in terms of that stat. And it has become more and more important, over the last year. Some of these, counter abilities are quite crazy. But the thing that I like about these party effects is that no matter who you're using it on within this card, they're all valuable effects, in some way. It's not like there's some random slash attack or there's some crit rate that doesn't benefit your support unit. Really, anybody can take advantage of those, and that's really why I love this card.
Yep, I totally agree. Well, good. So the next one is a vision card that saw a lot of use for a while. It's the Dwayne vision card. And this one, obviously, for Dwayne, has a high correlation of usage because there's a special ability on this card for him. And I think it was a 100% hit chance. It might have been a card remove too. It was something. It was a busted ability. So this was
Yeah, yeah.
a great, great, great vision card for him. Outside of that, it's still a good vision card. That 20 area risk is certainly nice. The bestowed effect isn't as strong as some of the others that we've seen, obviously, but you still get 4 agility on it. 16 crit evade is still certainly nice just to throw in there in their main slot. The human killer of 30, again, when you consider this is likely a main slot, that extra 30 mods certainly is nice to see too. This one maybe slightly not as much of a favorite of mine as some of the others, but again, when you consider the classes on here too, you have 3 great classes that do have some, good characters to drive the future of the game. Still a great card.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see this one being potentially pretty important, specifically for Katana. Especially if you think about maybe Dario coming in sometime next year.
Yep.
Maybe this card really, is important for that team. But yeah, I think that, the crit evasion area resist combo is very nice, and then you throw in a nice modifier on there with the agility. It's a pretty nice overall package.
Yep, totally agree. And the last one in here is our new Final Fantasy IX card. That was the Zidane Vision card. And this is still a really solid Vision card, all things considered. Not only does it have the hollow effects for what it gives for PvE content, I know that's not necessarily our focus all the time here, but 25 crit damage is going to, amplify your scores, all things considered, when you're using this in certain kinds of content. But the 20 unit res, the crit rate, the chain res, kind of what we saw earlier in one of these other cards, and the 10 defense pen, which you brought up on the Hio, in addition to the 3 agility that it has. There's a lot of things to like about it.
And the accuracy, 15 accuracy on there too. So
thank you. Yes.
Pretty loaded in terms of the bestowed, especially for Zidane. The one kind of knock on this card for me, at least right now, is that you kind of think of this card kind of almost purely as, and at least in terms of the units there, wind and ice are really the kind of the top dogs in terms of the units. They both have really, really good unit resist cards already with the Dark Esper cards that many of us have at this point. They were 2 of the first ones with Dark Odin and Dark Tetra. So, I think at that point, it makes this card a little bit skippable. Even though over time, of course, this one will probably end up, being more powerful, but I still do like it quite a bit.
Nope, I agree with that. The voice in the back of my head that still gives me the glimmer of hope is the classes on it in the meantime. Dagger is not the strongest class, doesn't mean it can't be, but having Mace and Spear on here, I really like a lot. Mace and Spear have proven that they have a lot of great vision cards to mingle with. They have a lot of great rainbow units, particularly going off of Dialdo and Raph as centerpiece units for what they can do. Flagbearer Glaciella has proven, and now we have Eld coming into the game too, that these are units that can stand on their own in various teams. That I like this card for the jobs more than anything. But obviously the attributes are important. So good. So that gets us through all of our A tier here, and leave us finally with our S tier vision cards. And some of these, probably no big surprise. A lot of you are probably using these on a daily basis. That's what makes them S tier vision cards. And we'll go through these individually as well. And JB, I'll let you kick off the discussion on each one of these as we go through them if you want. We'll start off here with the Halloween Lucia vision card, which was our first job-based vision card here in Global. Boy, did they get us to a privileged start with this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just about to say that our very first introduction, we got it a little bit early. Of course, the Halloween stuff kind of gets accelerated for us. But not only does it have the top tier artwork on there, but it's got that great bestowed ability with the area resistance, even a little bit of defense, like 7 defense. Okay, it's nothing to sneeze at. But then the strike res, the single target res, the magic killer, all 3 effects that have been pretty valuable. I think though that what really brought this card into the S tier for me was the ability on this one being a triple hit ability, which is super rare in the game, and that has been invaluable for PvE and guild raids specifically. So that I think really bumped this up into S tier for me.
Definitely. Well, in addition to it being a triple hit, it's a unit res imperil. So that's obviously it's both those things in conjunction. But yeah, the ability is top tier, the effects are top tier, the bestowed ability is great. And again, one of those ones that I think the overlap of a lot of these classes really elevates the upside, where the what exists currently for vision cards in the Spear and the Staff Black Mage, even the Axe jobs, are already pretty well established. That again, we want to consider the future tuning, but you really can't ignore the what currently exists in the state either. That this card has a lot of great overlap.
Yeah, this is a card I'm using in the latest sort of job team, which is that Black Mage team. Excellent card for that group specifically.
Yep, definitely so. And the next one here is Silver Memories, which came out a while ago. This is a great one for it. I always remember its magic stat on it. Oh no, wrong card.
I always confuse these two as
always, well. Always confuse. The artwork is just so slightly similar in the positioning of like where the main character focus is, and yeah, but yeah, you want to talk a little bit about this card too?
Yeah, so I always call this one the Minwoo card because Minwoo is one of my personal favorites from the selection quest there, and obviously it's absolutely incredible on her. By the way, she gets the extra bestows there, but 8% bestowed, agility there, excellent. You got the crit evasion and the area resist combo, always nice to see. Then like the whopping 60% magic is what really sort of amps this one up, and I think carries it up, above some of those other area resist cards in the A tier. So especially for that devout team, for the glove teams, it is one of the best cards you can have for them.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, obviously the 20 area res is great. The crit evade we just saw on a other A tier card is great. The 60% magic though can't be understated. It's the same thing with the Vivi vision card we'll talk about soon. That amount of a primary stat in its full effect on these main job slots are immense, not only for damage dealing but even for support capabilities as well, where things that scale off of healing potential, which certainly is here with Book and Glove and Staff Devout access. That it's a big power creep for what a lot of these characters would achieve otherwise. 60% magic you can't just like get for free somewhere. That's a very specific amount of magic to add to your character.
I mean, when you think about just the area resist alone, that is an effect that we've used in our primary slot for years now, just on its own. And even some of us continue to do that, depending on the teams. So when you can bring in that top tier offensive effect to combo with it in the same card slot, it really bumps it up to be, one of the better cards in the game.
Absolutely. And we'll see that trend with a couple of these. But for now, we'll talk about the Full Metal Alchemist card, which I referenced earlier. I'm sure a lot of you either remember warmly or remember hating it because of the strike meta that it near single-handedly ushered in because it has both the 18% agility, so above average percent, and the 16 unit res, which is slightly below average, but still the unit res being there. Do you want to talk a little bit about what this offers as well?
Yeah, so this one was another card sort of nice all-around package specifically for that team. Like you said, completely enables that team with the strike attack, the full 35 strike attack modifier on that as well. So you're getting your speed, you're getting some defense, you're getting the offense all in one here. You could roll out teams, built specifically around this, and that's what everyone did. Especially for the Elrics in particular, if you put it on them, made them even better. I think that the bestowed here is, overall it doesn't age as well as some of the other ones, but overall I think the card still deserves, to be in this class.
I agree. And this is the first vision card that we've seen. This is the first one. So again, when we consider the priorities of attributes, we look for AoE res, unit res, and agility. This is the first vision card that's got 2 out of those 3 on it. These vision cards are massive, massive drivers of team synergies, because what that means is you can effectively free up that 3rd vision card primary slot to be whatever you want, which is such a massive Swiss Army knife for your team that if you want a team and you need an attack stat, you can do it. Like we were talking about with the full metal card down here with the 50% attack and the crit rate, crit damage, boom, that's a massive power creep. Your team needs some accuracy, throw an accuracy card on. Your team needs some evasion, you want 20% evade, go ahead, throw 20% evade. Like, it's such a statistical power creep advantage to have that full extra 3rd division card that this is only a select few in the game that offer 2 of those 3, and this is one of them.
I know that kind of another feather in this card's cap is I've seen it being used a lot in the secondary slot as of late for like the devout or maybe even like the spear teams, because maybe they don't necessarily need that strike attack or like some of the other bestowed abilities, but it gives you that same card compression obviously in your secondary slot as well. So you can double up on those effects. So it's aged very, very well.
Absolutely has. And the next one here is a newer vision card. It's the Summer Glaciella vision card, as we know it or call it. Beachside Showdown, I think it's called. Yeah, Seaside Showdown. Do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, so this one, I think that a lot of us, pulled this one as well. I think Summer Glassy was a pretty popular unit. Obviously it's got that above average 24% area resist. It was the first card that we had come into the game at that value. So that was, some power creep there for that, meta class effect. The acquired AP, it's fine. It's kind of whatever, but it's the debuff weakening. This was kind of our introduction to that new kind of bonus or stat in the game. I think actually maybe it came a little bit earlier on Dialdo and on their self buffs, but this was the first time that we saw it, as on a vision card. And I know for me and for you as well in our conversations, this has really been one of the better stats to be introduced into the game this year. It's been immensely powerful, especially on Glacial and the Red Mage group that can really kind of build into that effect. So it does also have a pretty nice vision ability on it as well. I've saw quite a few people using this against Alaya and other fist units. So how about you? What are your thoughts?
Basically the same, and I wanted to differentiate this from the Shinryu vision card, which is that same 25% debuff. Obviously, the 24% area is though what really elevates this 2 tiers above the other one. The acquired AP, that's one that I like for free. It's one of those things that just, I think it's like a secret stat that you don't really notice the effect of till you don't have it. But about the debuff weakening in particular, I feel like most people don't always appreciate exactly how many attributes that touches. What that does is that any kind of debuff you get, it reduces the potency by 25%. And some people will immediately think of imperils, right? Like a 38% imperil. It's not a 38% imperil, it's a 29% imperil. So you're gaining or saving yourself 11% extra damage that would have been done to you. But even for really powerful or really important mechanics like healing power down, that is a very sneaky important one that comes to mind. That reduces healing power down by 25%. So if you normally have a 40 healing power down, my God, it's late. Don't judge me.
32.
30. Yeah, 30. 40 times 0.75. Yeah. So where it's normally 40 healing power down, it's only 30% healing power down. And same thing for agility percent down. And a whole bunch of these debuff effects that it's those sneaky small things that I think people don't realize how many things it touches.
And especially with I think them introducing this stat and kind of drumming up that demand, they've sort of at the same time put in these new, more powerful debuffs, like a Helena has, where she can cut 60% of your area resist now, or like a Laya that has her limit burst in peril that goes up to the 50% or whatever that is. So it's becoming just like the reaction block and kind of going against those new, more powerful counters. This stat is even more powerful in my opinion.
Definitely. Uh, and obviously, just an honorable mention, the classes on here are great too. Between Sword Red Mage gets a ton of good vision cards, and Catan is being slowly built out too. There's a lot of good stuff here, but we'll keep going because there's a couple more, and we have some Q&A we still want to get to. The next one here, which is an absolute S tier, is the Greater Demon vision card, and it's one of the few permapool vision cards that we see here. Silver Memories was one of them, but this is another one that is a permanent pool vision card. So for those of you that looking to kind of amp up your competitiveness a little bit here, if I can find it, there we go. Greater Demon. I'll kick it off here. It's 15% agility. It's the 16 strike res and the 24 slash res on a main slot. 24 slash res and 16 strike res do still end up helping a lot with a lot of different attributes on a lot of these characters, but the 10% area res on a bestowed effect is very, very strong. I just noticed this recently, again, kind of doing that Vivi deep dive where that slash and strike res, I was noticing that most of my characters at like 50% slash res and 50% strike res innately with this card. It's pretty nice to just throw in there that even though most of it might get penetrated, I think you're still getting to levels that most characters can't achieve if they're not on this. But yeah, 3 agility too, and great classes to put on it.
So I think that especially if you're looking at Wrath, like this card gets amped up to the next level too. It's a tank you can build around, one of the better ones in the game. You really can get kind of an all-in-one package specifically for her. But even if you look beyond that, if you look beyond Dark, for Mace and for Dagger, this is also a very solid card. One that with the agility on there, it's one of their only ones for those job classes that they have access to. So yeah, definitely one of the best perma pool cards specifically.
Absolutely. And the next best perma pool is the Melnia vision card, which many people were waiting for quite some time. It was on a delayed release because of where she came out with Road to Worldwide. But this is, I mean, in my opinion, I think this is the best vision card in the game, at least job-based vision card. Obviously debatable whether Dark Odin is still king of it all, but job-based vision card, because for me, again, the classes, they could use some extra help. There's still a couple of vision cards I want to see before you can make this class, and even on these 3 here between gun, mace, and sword, there's not a lot of sustain other than what might be in the mace class, and even that's kind of limited. But again, just looking purely statistically, 24% unit res, so it's that above average amount of it. The 32% reaction block, which we think is one of our primary things to look for. The 15% agility. All 3 of those together on a main slot do immense things for freeing up what you can do in your other vision card slots.
It's another one of those cards, just like the Great Earl card, that all 3 party effects here are great for anyone, whether they're magic, whether they're physical, whether they're support, whether they're damage. It's something that really benefits the whole party, which, it's another one of those bonuses that kind of, when you're differentiating the cards and when you're looking and kind of comparing apples and oranges, this is what helps transcend it and like you said, makes it one of, if not the best job cards in the game.
Definitely. The last 2 here, one of them is the Halloween Lucio vision card that came out. And I'll actually give a quick demerit to this vision card in conjunction with the Lucia one, because I've been trying to build around this card a lot. One of the things about the Lucio vision card, we'll talk through this first, 42% luck and 15% agility. That alone together, 2 and 1 for evade units, is top tier. My slight demerit, though, is where it overlaps with the Melnia vision card, that when it comes to these sword knight categories, I've tried to make some of these teams, you can't put this in the main slot because the Melnia vision card is already your agility in that main slot. So this being relegated to a subvision card hurts me a little bit, but it's still an exceptional subvision card. But even from a main vision card, this has been a huge driver for Halloween Lucio in particular, but there's a lot of other units that really appreciate this. And luck is more than just evasion. It's a big part of accuracy as well. There's a lot to like. I don't know if there's more you want to add on to that.
I know for me, like, if I am building an evasion team, no doubt this is a primary card. It is better than the Sorrow card specifically for evasion because it does have The enhanced luck here. It does also have the 5 evasion on the bestowed ability. So for evasion in particular, if that's your goal, you kind of throw the area resist and unit resist out the window sometimes.
Yep.
Very, very solid card. Allows you to mix glove and axe and knight. And they've turned into some pretty nice combos so far.
Definitely. This is a card that just has a lot of good value. You might not always feel it with the luck and the agility, even on non-evade teams, but it matters. Even the 12 Spirit for where like Spirit and Perils and just things of that nature.
I know this sort of mini like semi-evasion meta that we've been kind of experiencing and is continuing right now. This has been one of the main drivers for that.
And the last vision card is the one that just came out this week. It's our Vivi vision card, which is an exceptional vision card, all things considered. I mean, you're getting, again, we talk about that 24% area res above average. The reaction block rate, 32%, another primary stat you look for. But similar to Silver Memories, the 50% magic here. That's a game-changing amount of magic for many of these units. It completely changes the complexity of their build. You get an extra 15 luck, and then for dual content, you get 15% HP, which is certainly sizable for a lot of these units that, maybe slightly on the squishier side, but not all of them, some of them, but great vision card, yeah.
And for folks out there that don't quite get the differentiation there, the dual mode is specifically for like class match and things like basically like the free match area of the game client. So for if you love those modes, quick pick, class match, this is certainly, ups the ante for this card. Great bestowed, great party effects, another one where they have 3 really solid ones. This is one that I think a lot of people who were kind of nixing the holo cards, this is one that I think they probably would pony up for anyway, just because it is so good.
Agreed. And for magic units, for magic units in general, book, mace, staff, black mage. You're really just missing Staff Devout, which has its own vision card. It doesn't need this one per se, but you're covering most of your magic classes in this, which I really like for them in all content. So that brings us then now to our future vision cards here. Yeah, these are ones coming in the future. The first one, well, it's the Elserel vision card. The next one is oh,
It's like the Heinler dragon.
yeah, Hein the Dragon. The old, I'll call this the Oldoa vision card. I don't know what you want to call it. And the last one is the new one that just came out. We'll kick things off with the Elserel vision card, though.
That's one that's kind of gotten into this delay zone with Melnia. I mean, sorry, with Bronwell and kind of that stuff. So
Yes. So, what do you think about this vision card? Have you you've looked at this? I'm sure.
this is another one that I like specifically because of the debuff weakening and the HP combo. Also has some defense on there, some base defense too. So it's like a bruiser card. It's like an all in one package for a bruiser. It's kind of like a lot of stuff you'd like to see for them. I don't think that it's going to be into my S tier. I'd say that I would have it maybe competing for an A tier, maybe even B tier. I'm kind of on the line between those two. What do you think?
I'm probably rounding down to B tier for the same reason I am for Shinryu. That the debuff weakening I really like a lot, but I don't know if there's enough to make this a main slot vision card. And because you're relegating that to the sub slot, you lose a lot of the defense stat. The HP is still really good, but it's I think for me right there with Shinryu for a lot of the same reasons.
Yeah, so I mean the HP obviously in the secondary, great value there.
Right.
The debuff weakening is a 40% ratio in the sub slot, so not quite as good as you'd like to see, but still not terrible. So yeah, I think definitely a secondary card.
Yep.
B tier is good.
Yep. The other one here is that Heinler Dragon, which, if I recall,
Comes with Astrius.
yeah, comes to Astro. So, not any of the big things I look for on my party other than that 32 reaction block, which is nice, but the rest of it, 5 unit res is nice, but as we've seen, 5 unit res is a little bit below average for some of the bestowed effects that we really like. The class is not bad. Greatsword again gets another like decent vision card. I don't know if I'm in love with this though. What about you?
I think this is kind of maybe a C tier card for me because yeah, it doesn't have any of the primary ones that I'm looking for, and I think when I'm thinking about some of these effects, and one card that I always kind of put up against them is something like the astrologer's card. And that's kind of my barometer for when I put that card in my secondary, what is like the tangible difference between using this card for a rainbow team and using this, offensive based card for a rainbow team? If you don't have a huge differentiation there, then it's not making a compelling case for you to pull it.
No, totally. And I think we made a good choice of putting it in C because I'm getting hero vibes from it. Where hero is
Oh
that
yeah,
32 reaction block and 42 slash attack. This is essentially the
near
same
near
thing, near
identical.
identical, right? It's just a different set of characters. So yeah, I'm putting that right in that same spot for that reason.
It does give you the crit damage instead of the crit rate, so I mean, it's a total 67 modifier if you have a high crit unit, which is pretty strong, but yeah, I don't see it making I think it's totally skippable.
Same, and I really like crit damage. My only problem with crit damage though is, um, it's the last modifier I want to prioritize. You want to prioritize other ones first, like man killer, then your attack type, then crit damage, because crit is not a guaranteed thing to happen. You really have to gear for crit hit rate first, then you get crit damage. So to me, like all the builds I've ever done, I love the concept of crit damage. I've yet to see times where it's really a game changer though, because it's like the last stat you have to think about and your checklist of what you're trying to put into your team.
Especially recently where Gumi has really been upping the ante on crit evasion on some of the latest units
Yep.
and giving them big bonuses to crit evasion, something that we hadn't really seen too much in the past. So it seems like they're finally implementing some counterplay there.
Yep, absolutely. So the next one here is that Oldoa Vision card. This is a fun one because I know those that might have played the campaign more recently. There's a fun little what was it? Top or Bottom was the name of the story quest with her and Grifford and Big Brother, Little Sister, and all that. You know,
I love this trio in the story.
it's such a good one. I mean, obviously, these are two out of my three favorite characters. Fuck you, Elia. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, but I'm kidding. I don't mind Elia. I'm just sick of her getting top tier units for so long. Give someone else a top tier unit. But yeah, obviously, Griffith and Oldo are like two of my favorites for reasons I can't explain. But yeah, do you have any thoughts initially on this vision card as well?
I think it's pretty solid. You have, a pretty good bestowed with the slash res pen and agility. So, you do have, several or at least a couple slash based classes that can use it. And then like the unit resist with the 50% attack combo is pretty solid. High crit evasion, A or B, I would say. Maybe in between. What are you thinking?
I could.
I'm thinking this one is like fairly close to like the Zidane card, like in terms of impact.
Hmm. I was. It's funny. I was gonna ding this one for only 16 unit res. That I'm thinking like if we're gonna put Elia and the other one down here, but 50% attack is 50% attack. That's like a compelling case to keep that up a bit. And the crit
Well,
evasion,
then
yeah,
24% crit evasion is pretty high.
yeah. And you know what?
And
I'll actually give it to you. You know why? Because this sounds dumb. That slash res pen is gonna be my balance shifter. One of the things with these vision cards is that you can't as reliably get penetration on the main slot like we're used to seeing. And I'll actually bring up Halloween Lucio as a great example of this. Halloween Lucio is like maybe an exaggeration. I still think like S tier, but like A tier unit. But it's because of the vision cards. You take him out of Mono Earth, he's a different character. Because Mono Earth has some of the best slash res pen cards in the game. Not only the King Mont main one, but the I think it's the Zazan sub one. And so once you
yeah,
start making these rainbow teams, you lose a lot of those old penetration cards that used to be main slot worthy. And so that extra 10 in the main slot, I'll give it to him. Particularly for Slash, where there's so much mitigation for Slash. Having that there, in addition to any other kinds you can get, like Sildra and whatnot, I like it.
I like it. The Bruiser Lucio build. I want to see it.
Yep, sometime. Which leaves us finally with the vision card we kick things all off with is the new, I don't know, young Leonis
Leonis
boys.
boys.
Yeah, Leonis boys vision card. Is it wrong to put this in S? Are you in agreement with that or no? Is this an A card for you?
I think this
Yes.
one is definitely S tier for me. I mean, you have the 24% area resist, highest in the game. Matching the beach card. And then you have the 25% HP, which we were raving about being able to pull that into a primary slot, potentially double it up with another 20% in the sub slot. That seems pretty strong for me, especially when you look at all the bruisers that can take advantage of this card in the spear and red mage class.
Yep. and this is one where I'm biased on the classes too, because Spear, Sword Red Mage, and Staff Devout are all like meta defining units at the moment. That I know we don't want to live in the moment on a lot of those, but there's so much infrastructure there with them that it's hard for me to look at this card and not see all the variations of what you can potentially do for rainbow teams. Where you look at characters like Soul, like Summer Glaciella, like Dialdo, like Flagbear Glaciella, characters that like really are really self sufficient on their own and wherever you want to put them, that this card seems like it has a lot of legs for a long time.
Yeah, this is a card that if you pull it day one, you're going to immediately be able to get a ton of value out of it. These have been some of the more popular, most used units, over the last couple of months, and I don't really see that changing much with Eld coming in here.
Nope, definitely not. But that is our final tier list, all things considered. Um, I like the distribution of this. I think it's pretty nice that we have, most in B and kind of trickle down from there. Again, I don't think any of these are really more than a tier away from where they should be, and there's a whole bunch of X factors in terms of how they get used in main slots, sub slots, and what teams you put together. But I think we did a good job here.
Yeah, I mean, I think SNA, I think that if you look at the job-based teams out there, these are the cards that you're going to be seeing in the majority of those parties. Of course, you're going to still be seeing some of the old standby rainbow cards as well from the first year of the game, but as more of these come in, those cards will start to be eliminated too.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Well, that leads us finally to just really a slight Q&A section where we have a couple Q&A things here, only 3 questions in particular. That's it for now. I think that's really all we had to cover. We got some exciting news. I'm probably joining you tomorrow in Howl. We talk about guild movement. Finally had a random spot open up, and I know you got quite the backlog that I've been waiting a while to hop in there, but that should be a fun opportunity
Yeah,
for us. Yeah,
yeah, and we're excited to pull you in, and we'll we'll throw you out there in Guild War and make sure you get to your 6 stars every day. Show everybody who the
oh,
the Visipor way.
yeah. We'll see about no. The Visa Poor Way is taking one for the team and winning the guild wars. So I'll take my 3 stars and go home as if it means it was a positive contribution.
There you go.
But yeah, that's everything to talk about in the meantime, though. Hopefully, again, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll have some all new content with the new stuff coming out soon, and that's it. So, per usual, thanks, JB. Have a good night in the meantime, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, see you next time.